to the Kim B. Davis Show. Here we'll talk to the leaders in technology, culture, business, and the arts. We'll cover politics, advocacy, motherhood, writing, mental health, and mostly we'll focus on hope. Join Kim B. Davis, author, playwright, radio personality, event consultant, professional speaker on the Kim B. Davis Show. One. Good evening and welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. I'm your host, Kim B. Davis. And this evening, guys, we have a treat. We have a bona fide star in studio with us. We have Kisma Jordan Hunter. So let me read all of her titles off to you. She is not only a singer, she is a composer, songwriter, producer, educator, speaker, advocate, and also a mom. Good evening, Kisma. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for being on the Kim B. Davis Show.
Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. So let's get right to it. You have this wonderful and beautiful voice that I heard several years ago. And you sing one of my favorite art forms, and that's opera. And you have created something called the OperaSoul Experience. Tell us who Kisma Jordan Hunter is, what drew you to opera, and tell us about the OperaSoul Experience.
Well, who I am is, I am very, I'm an artist, music is my love. And so I've been singing for a very, very long time. I started singing in terms of like what I can see, in terms of what's documented, is like 3 years old. Pictures with me, with something as a microphone around the house. But I literally have been singing in different organizations, schools, churches since about 4 or 5 years old. And my mother was the first person to really introduce me to the musical form in terms of just structured music, choir, music theory, if you will, piano lessons and music theory books, piano books. And so I started in the home learning to read music as a child. And so, my mother, she must have known that I was musically inclined because she, pushed me to be in music, whether it was a talent show or, signing me up for choir and me not really understanding what that was, but I fell in love with it. And, I sang in every choir, from high school, middle school, college. And so I never really thought about doing music professionally. I just enjoyed singing. But it really became a large part of my life early on. Choir was everything. And when I went to high school, the choir director at King High School in Detroit, Michigan, Martin Luther King Jr. Senior High School, she was the first teacher to say, you should take voice lessons. And so then it was a different thing. It was taking voice lessons. What's that? Taking voice lessons. And so she had a teacher who was, I would come to know later that she actually taught some of my colleagues in grad school. Mm-hmm. She taught at Eastern Michigan. And, but I took lessons out of her home in Southfield. And so she happened to go to my music teacher's church because Mrs. Lloyd, Alice Bay Lloyd was the choral director at King High School for many years, but she was also a preacher's wife and a minister of music. Mm-hmm. And so, so she was part of her church. So I would go to Miss Kirkland's house and have lessons once a week. And I did that all throughout high school. So I started taking voice lessons at 14. And she would, give me songs and we would do like solo ensemble. I'm not even sure if they do that anymore, but this is Michigan MSHVAA. It's a whole organization and they would do solo ensemble and choral ensemble every year and you would prepare songs. And so that's what I would use my lessons for, Little did
Mm.
I know that it was really setting a foundation for me to go on to college and continue to study voice. So at that point, I didn't really want to be a music major. I just wanted to sing in choir. So I happened to get an academic and a music scholarship to Kentucky State University,
Mm.
and was just going to sing in the choir and was going to major in English because I liked English. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew I was going to sing a little bit and just get a degree. I had no idea. But and the more I sang, Dr. Smith, who is the choir director at Kentucky State, he came to King when I was a sophomore and auditioned and basically granted me a scholarship then.
Mhm.
And so he kept his word and gave me that scholarship when I came. And so he was like, I know you've been taking voice lessons, so I want you to keep taking them
Mhm.
because you had what they call applied voice in undergraduate studies, and it's just a private voice lesson. But all music majors have to take voice lessons, and all members of the choir have to take some form of vocal training. So whether that's a group voice or a private voice. And so he's like, "You already been taking private, you should keep taking it." So I kept taking them. And so, but then that obligated me to other things though, because I was in a major applied voice. So I had to prepare songs every semester for jury and sing on the seminars. And so in doing so, people assumed that I was a music major, even though I was not. And
Mm.
so people started to ask the question, well, why aren't you a music major? Because you sound good enough to be one. Why aren't you majoring in music? And I said, because music doesn't pay the bills. I don't know. I don't know. Listen, my family is a blue collar, middle class family. Everybody works. And I can't go home saying I'm gonna be a singer because they're like, well, how are you gonna make money? But it was enough for me to realize that I was good enough to be a music major. And the more I studied and learned my voice, the better I became. And so by the time I got ready to graduate, I was like, I'm going to go get a master's degree in music and just commit myself to performance and try to be a singer. I don't know. Lord help me. And that was really the beginning of it, of me at least knowing that I wanted to be a singer and on this path to possibly becoming an operatic singer,
Mm.
which I didn't know that many opera singers, let alone Black opera singers.
Absolutely.
But my high school teacher, she had us sitting in on Kathleen Battle's rehearsal. Kathleen Battle came to perform with the Detroit Symphony Orchestra about my freshman or sophomore year, and we went to her dress rehearsal at Orchestra Hall. I had no idea who Kathleen Battle was.
Mhm.
Now I understand the privilege of just being able to sit in the dress rehearsal and watch her sing on stage.
Mhm.
Um, that was the first time I had ever seen an opera singer who looked like me. And
Mhm.
so I reflect back on that moment to say, okay, this is kind of a big deal trying to be a Black opera singer because just like a lot of things, Black people have our uphill battle of, so much.
Mhm.
And so I experienced that at every level. Once I left the comfort of a historically Black college like Kentucky State University, I had to contend with the professional world and the reality of, the marginalizing of Black artists.
Mhm.
And it's just, it's a lot of pressure, because you already have to be good, but now we have to be without flaw
Yes.
because I'm Black and
Mhm.
I can't afford to come in here and be anything less than perfect because they look at me and they think I'm not good enough.
Mhm.
That's a reality, within that field. There is this ideal that Black singers don't have it for whatever reason. I'm not sure where that comes from. I mean, it's just a thought that is attached to Black people. Um, but we are good enough. And so after experiencing so many things, and I mean, I did a lot. I was doing a lot. I was doing well. I did well on the grad level, got a lot of opportunities, won a lot of competitions, and received the feedback that was validating me enough where I thought I knew I was good enough to be a world-class talent, as they say. You hear that more than once. And so you got to start believing it like, okay, well, I'm not crazy here. I can really have a career in opera. I could really be out here and be a top tier soprano. I mean, these are the words I'm hearing. I'm not making it up. This is what people have said to me. And so, but then when you go out and you see that you're good enough, and then the opportunity is there and you don't get it, and you can't justify why you're not getting them. That's when the doubt, because it's a rejection or a redirection, as people would say. But you search within yourself to say, okay, what am I not doing? But it may not be that you're not doing it. It could just be that there's something else for you. And so, thus OperaSoul. And the idea of I already had my own ideas within music for a long time, because while I was, getting degrees in music, I was still singing other stuff. I was singing at church. I was, collaborating on other people's albums, jazz albums, compilation albums, all types of music has always been a part of my world. And so, so it was never foreign for me to think that I could, take these two extremes and put them together and make something that was marketable, essentially. And it was just about me having the confidence to do it. And so I've written songs before, even though I didn't go to school for composition. I could write. I would hear melodies all the time. So I was always, I think I had it to be a songwriter and a composer. I just had not moved and operated in those capacities. And so people saw me as just a singer. And one thing about opera is, you're constantly reinterpreting someone else's music, based off of, who the director or the conductor, how they want you to sing it. But you're constantly being told how to sing. And I always said, I was saying to myself, how are you telling me how to sing this song? Like, I'm singing it. Not only am I singing it, but I'm acting. So I'm taking the song and I'm making it mine. And whatever my voice or the character is, and I'm lending my experiences to that in that moment, I should be able to sing this song however I'm led to sing it. And you shouldn't have anything to say about that. And so I started to think, maybe this isn't for me. I feel like I'm too rebellious to be here. I'm not going to, especially the more aware of myself I became. So I was like, maybe God brought me through opera to get me on the other side of this, to be able to use my voice, to be skilled in that way, and hone this gift so that I could utilize it without limit and really, really maximize the fullness of what the gift is. Because in opera, you don't necessarily get a chance to do that. You do what the voice it yields. You can only sing what your voice will allow you to sing. You may want to be a Wagnerian tenor or a soprano. You may want to be a Brunhilde. But if the voice isn't a Brunhilde, you won't be a Brunhilde. That's just how it is. You can't make it be a square if it's a circle. You can't. And you have to submit to that, or you're going to find yourself in trouble without a voice, damaging the voice. And so, but the business is structured in such a way where there are systems, and you need to look like this in order to fit into this character. And if you don't look like that and fit into this, then you probably won't get work in that way. It's no different than, actors, get typecast a lot, always seeing someone play the bad guy, or, you always seeing a woman of color or some, a Latin, Hispanic ethnicity always playing the help. Or, it's the same thing happens in opera, the same thing. And so that can just become, it's frustrating. And so OperaSoul was essentially a response to my experiences in that way, to say, let me do something that I don't feel like a lot of people can do, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they could, do they have the confidence to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do they have the fortitude to go out here and be the first and, you know, and do it and see what happens? Because when people are used to making money and you got to build something, the money doesn't come right away, you know. But if that's not what it's all about, and you can really build the foundation and sow, it's worth it in the end. And so I decided that it was worth it for me to jump in this way, to say, I'm just going to bet on myself, because I've already tried it the other way. Like, I've already been out here. I've already heard no enough, you know, so I'm used to no.
Mm-hmm.
The worst that could happen is somebody says, yeah, we don't like it. And if that's the case, then I can be something else. I can just do something else. But if I don't ever do it, I will never know.
Mm-hmm.
So how about I just do it and try to do it well? And so it took me about a year to really commit myself to doing it, because I was scared. It was scary, because I was essentially saying, I'm going to lay this down. Like, I wasn't auditioning. I stopped looking for management and just committed myself to really working out the sound. Like, what does opera soul sound like?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I'm saying operatic vocals and soul, what is that? What is that to me?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do I want to say? And in the process of that, I pitched the idea a couple of times. You know, I worked on a medley, I did a collaboration with an artist.
Mm-hmm.
That was really the first breakthrough to say, now this sounds like opera soul.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of blew up in its own way, because people were like, oh, that was great. That was amazing. Da, 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 da. And I was like, yeah, that's just one song though. Oh, we may need to just create a little bit more for me to be sold on it. And then going to TEDx Detroit, you know, and presenting it there. And people ain't like, oh my God, and I felt, oh, like, okay, this might be okay. And then in the process before that, you know, getting the Kresge Artist Fellowship, which was, you know, never expected that. Just stepped out talking about, you know, I want to fuse music together. And then, you know, sending it over to the Knight Foundation through their challenge, and them saying, we like this. I think that this is good. And I'm like, well, that's all I needed to hear then. I think we're going to go ahead and move on with Opera Soul, and and see what happens. And so so here we are. Opera Soul happened. I'm still kind of just basking in the fact that we did it, because I was like, oh my goodness. Like, I wrote part of that. I did it. So yeah, so that is good. So now we're just building from that place. But yeah, a lot of people don't know that I basically like had a career as like an opera singer before this. I was actually singing operas and singing with, you know, orchestras, and you know, in the process of all of that, you know, had got married and started a family, and you know, trying to, at this point, I feel like I'm really on my journey. And in that regard, age is not, it's nothing but a number. You know, people put a lot of, they attach age and establishment, you know, being established by this age. And it's like, when you're really trying to move in purpose, you know, authentically, you can't really put an age on that. You know, it's just about your discovery, you know, your revelation of yourself, and knowing what you're supposed to be doing, what you're passionate about doing, what your gifts and callings are, and then putting that together to chart the course. And that just takes time. And so, so yeah, so I mean, I feel completely empowered at this point to kind of, you know, take on this new phase of my life, and move in it, and feel confident that I can and will get to where I see myself in the vision of this project.
That is absolutely amazing. I love your story. I want to go back to a couple of things that you said. One, and you know, a lot of people have this conversation when you hit a certain, as you said, a certain number in your life, and you go, "Ooh,
I,
I've been doing this for how long? This isn't quite what I want to do. What did I think I wanted to do when I was younger? Why did I stop dreaming my
right,
dream? Or
right,
what
right,
happened to my dream?"
right,
You
right,
know, I have a respectable career and I've made money and I have a title. And, you know, Oprah Winfrey used to say, as long as I made the amount of money that was my age and I had a title and all of these different things. And if you read Michelle Obama's book, she talked about, you know, getting to the age of 35 and becoming an attorney and being successful and being able to do all of these things. But
right.
after a while, she said, I want something more. And I
Yep.
think it's important that you talked about being in college and being given the opportunity to dream, where people began to pour into you. Yes, Kisma, you can do this.
Right,
Because oftentimes children are told, yeah, you're good at that, as you said, but you need a job.
right.
So you need to go to medical school, you need to go to law school, go get
Something.
that business degree. You know, I just did a podcast a few weeks ago with a woman who was an accountant who has now transferred her skill set to being a beauty supply operator of several different
Wow.
locations and has a successful web presence and has totally gone to or has achieved her dream, should I say. And I just want you to talk about that a little bit because I said earlier, you are a mom. Do you see in your children things that make you think, they're artists? Because oftentimes, just as I said, we see children that are artists and we're like, they're so creative, but they're gonna be broke.
Right,
They're gonna be
right,
poor. We're gonna have to pay for
right, right,
it.
right, right. And yeah, and maybe it's because, my mom is a creative. I think that when you come up in it, um, I'm I'm sorry about
It's
this
okay.
phone just went off. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Um, when you come up in it, your mindset is different
Mhm,
because it's just about you. The ideal that artists have to be broke is just about perception. It's
mhm,
based off of what you know in
mhm,
terms of art. And I think people just think um, they don't understand that art is marketable
mhm,
and there is a track that you just have to know early on and know what to do. But
mhm,
knowledge is power. And so you don't have to be broke. It's just about understanding the road, the path,
mhm,
and how to get to the opportunities that will allow you to have a lucrative and marketable art form, a
mhm.
product, however you want to market it or give it to the world. But yeah, I think that because I was raised in a way, I never saw art as, oh, I'll be broke. You know, my mom is a across the board a creative. She can draw, she can write, she can sing, she can cook, she can make stuff. And so I'm totally an extension of her. People always ask me, where do you get it from? It's like her,
Mhm,
yeah. Um, and so I never felt like I only felt like I couldn't do it or I would struggle because that's what people told me.
mhm,
But once I was in it, I was like, not so much. You don't have to struggle here. It's a
mhm.
lot of, I spent a lot of money doing art. I have. It's just about understanding the path. So when I look at my children, I'm like, if they are creatives, and they are
Mhm,
already, my oldest, her imagination is. it really, it makes me say, wow. You know, your children always make you say, wow, anyway. But when I watch her and how I see her imagination work, just the things that she imagines and puts together, I'm just like, yeah. So I get it though. And so as a creative, I have the grace to deal with my child as a creative because we're difficult because we're, you know, we're eclectic, you know, we don't necessarily stay in the rules, stay in the form. That's art, that's what it is. But what it makes me want to do is just um I can understand parents being like helicopter parents to children who are going to be in some form of art business because it takes a lot of strategy, it takes a lot of understanding and knowledge. And the more you know based off of your own experience, you can set the foundation for your child to say, okay, if you know that you want to do this, this is what we're going to do. But I'm not going to force them. I'm not going to force it. But I always believe anything worth doing is worth doing well. And that's something that's across the board. So whether if they were a welder, you know, I'm like, you learn how to weld well and do it well and do a good job. So yeah, yeah, I think it's just about understanding um where you fit in it. And once you get that, you just have to have a plan. If you have a vision, just write it, make it plain. But you don't have to struggle. You know, anytime you're trying to build and establish something, it's going to be work. You know, you're going to have to work. It's going to be no's, going to be rejection. You just have to keep at it. And if you have it to do, then I believe that there's a place for you there. I think that's half the battle. A lot of people do things they just shouldn't be doing. You know, it's like, you know, you're trying to be this, but this is where your gift is. Like, this is what you do well. Yeah, you could do that. Like, you know, I could be a chef. Totally. I love to cook. I understand things. I have a just innate cooking sensibilities when it comes to things. And I could probably be a really good chef. But I could sing. Like, and I can sing in such a way. It's like, why would the Lord have me doing anything else but that? That doesn't even make sense. So I think it's just about, you know, I always look at like a Magic Johnson or a LeBron James. You know, they have athletic giftings, but that gifting, they were obedient, they followed it, and it opened the door to a lot of other opportunities. But they probably wouldn't be where they were today had they chose a different path and didn't become basketball players.
Very true.
You just gotta, you know, you just gotta follow. You know, it's gotta follow the open door. And yeah, opera was an open door, but this curve in going into this thing was an open door. And so gotta follow the open door.
That is a fantastic sentiment. I tell people all the time, once you understand your purpose and your gift, your skills and talents will feed right into that, and you will understand, or you'll have a deeper understanding of what it is that you're supposed to do. There won't be anything that will be able to knock you off your square. At least you shouldn't let it.
Right.
But I want to go back to something else that you said, and I thought it was very important. And I just recently saw Blue at the Michigan Opera Theater, and I thought it was amazing and it was beautiful. And I saw so many Black and brown people in this cast, and they were singing opera. And I loved every minute of it. It reminds me of what you said. You had to figure out, okay, did I need to get on the other side of opera so that I could create OperaSoul and do it the way that God intended for me to do it? Because as you said, you can't be a Broomhilda if that's not your voice.
Right. It's not, that's not it.
Right. There is no auto tune like we have in the music industry, and not criticizing it, but there are different things that you can do when you're in pop or hip hop or rock music. You have different things that can aid your voice, that can change it to however you want it to be. But in opera, whatever you have is what you have to work with.
Yeah, that's what
and I think it's important that, because oftentimes, and this is going to be a two-part question, oftentimes we don't see ourselves or our stories reflected in opera.
Yes.
So, because you said that, helping you to get to the other side, talk a little bit more about your experience as a Black person in America, where you traveled, all of those things, how they feed into your ability to be able to take what you've experienced and translate it into operatic music where people can understand it and it can still have that feeling that people can resonate with.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at I guess really this season, because we were out, no one was performing last season. And so you have just a myriad of works by Black composers and arrangers, and orchestral companies and opera companies are setting these works and they're commissioning them. But it's really long overdue because when you think about the history of the American music songbook or American music literature, Black music is there from the very beginning, but struggling to get it on platforms that take it to different places. And so, but I mean, historically, opera is marginalizing. I mean, you just going back to the beginning of it, it was, there was separation of seating, it was a art form that was for wealthy, rich, and commoners usually did not get a chance to see it, and if they did, it was from, it wasn't the good seats, as you would say. And so, but unfortunately, a lot of what's portrayed on stage it doesn't mirror the reality of the world that we live in. And so it's refreshing for us to have the opportunity to be on stage and sing and have music that speaks to our experiences, speaks to our culture. So that's already great. But it shouldn't be historic all the time. Like it should be normal at this point. When you think about who we are the global majority.
Exactly.
So, when you see art form, there should be something Black. Oh, it should be as much Black as possible.
Right.
Because, we're everywhere. So we have some work to do there. And OperaSoul is part of that work.
Okay.
Because the objectives for OperaSoul were to create a broader platform for artists of color, and to create music that, in my opinion, encompasses all of our culture. I just happen to be able to sing opera. Everybody who sings can't sing opera. My voice just lends itself to opera, but it's not all that I sing. And to be honest, a lot of Black opera singers I know could sing in church. They could leave the operatic stage and go and sing down the church. They can just do that. That's just part of us. It's no different from a ballet dancer dancing and then going to the club and, doing a hip hop routine. I mean, that's just what it is. And so I wanted that because I feel like it speaks to the wholeness of us as a culture, not just this part. I can be refined, yeah, but we can growl and we can shout and that's a part of us. The Black church is a part of us. It's a cornerstone of our community. And we should be able to illustrate the extreme of the two. And so that was an objective. The other objective was to make it approachable, because unfortunately, opera really isn't marketed to our community.
It's not.
It's not. It's not marketed to us. And that's why I can appreciate, the Detroit Symphony Orchestra and Michigan Opera Theater bringing in stuff that speaks to what Detroit is about. And Detroit is a predominantly Black city. Like when you have the larger art organizations putting forth seasons, it needs to have Black stuff on it. Like, how are you creating and living and thriving in a Black community and at least 40 or 50% of your season isn't talking about or speaking to the Black culture experience. That just doesn't make sense. So I'm like, we need to create something that goes to the people. And if that means taking what they love, which is R&B, hip hop, soul music, and merging that with operatic vocals, let's meet them where they are and do that then. And then market directly to them to say, we know you don't get a chance to experience opera because the opera dollar isn't coming for you. You know, they have their market, their demographic, and that's who they bank on, and that's where the effort goes. So let's go get our people and let's create something for them. And between those two things, I feel like we can create a market that will fill up this gap. So it was about, you know, being able to be on stage and be in front of our people, because even now, you know, I did a production of Porgy and Bess, but the majority of the audience was white. You got the majority of the cast finally is Black, but everybody in the audience is still white. And I'm like, you know, and I mean, I love the production itself. The music's amazing, but just the storyline. It's just like the same thing you will see on TV. You know, a struggling Black family, or you know, the drug dealers, and the come up with that, you know, and it's just crime rate. And it's like, but that's not all that we are.
Exactly.
That's not all our stories. That's not, I didn't come up in a crime reading family, you know.
Exactly.
My mom was in the Air Force, you know. My mom, she went to college, you know. I'm not saying I don't know about it, but I can't necessarily say that my life is structured around that storyline. And so there's just more to us than that. And so as great as Porgy and Bess is, you know, it's refreshing to be able to hear stories that talk about other stuff. And so I think someone was talking about, you know, no more Black pain. You know, when we're writing stories, let's hear about all the Black joy. You know, let's hear a love story. You know, like, so I loved stories about, you know, the first date of, you know, Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. You know, it's just like, you know, two emerging, you know, icons essentially, in their beginnings, and just that whole progress, because everyone's been there. Everyone's had a budding love in the midst of you establishing who you are in the world. You know, we're in school together, and you know, we're in debt together, but we're trying to make it. That's a real storyline that happens over and over. How many movies, how many productions have you seen that speak to it though? You haven't. So I mean, for me, some of the storylines within opera, I just never wanted to do, even though I was kind of projected to do them. You know, Mimi and La Boheme, or you know, Mozart. You know, Donna Anna, Susanna, and it was just like, yeah, I'm not really excited about any of that. I'm just not. You know. But if I want to work, I guess I need to get excited about it. But you know, it's like, that's hard though, because if I'm not feeling it, then you won't feel it from me. And that's when I do my best singing, as with anyone else. You know, the more you feel it, the more it speaks to you, the more you're conveying of it is real. And that's what people want to feel. So yeah, my experience was that. And just feeling like I'm going to be seeing the same stuff over and over. And none of it's really going to speak to who I am, not fully. And do I want to spend my whole life doing that? I don't think so. So you have that. And then just the idea of some of the other things that go on within the audition process. You know, people saying, you know, you need to lose weight.
Oh yeah.
Or you know, your hair. And you should straighten your hair in the audition. And you know, I was like, well, when the white girls with curly hair come in here, do you tell them to straighten their hair too? Because her hair is curly like mine. Right. Why do I have to straighten my hair for an audition? Huh? Stop eating. Just stop eating. Somebody said it to me before. Stop eating. And I was like, now, I'm not even the biggest person in this room. I wasn't even the biggest person there. There were other sopranos bigger than me. You know, at least I have a waist. I have a waist. Okay, you can snatch my waist, but I need to stop eating. Did you tell her to stop eating? Because I'm like, who says that? How is that healthy? And that's when things like that started to happen, it just made me question, you know, are they asking me to change who I am? You know, health is health, but I'm just talking about what type of person am I going to be on the other side of this? If this is the road, am I going to compromise myself to the point where I lose my whole soul salvation because I want to have a career? And I was like, you know, I don't think that's for me. And so as much as I appreciate where the state of things now, I question the longevity of it, you know, because it's trendy. That's what I say. You know, you have all of this, you know, social dynamic and drama with Black communities and police and just a lack of affirmation for us, even though I feel like in a lot of ways we make the world go round. But when it comes time for us to get our just due, we never really get it. And so now, you know, everyone's, well, let's program this and let's have the recitals and put all the Black composers on and everything. And it's just like, but how long is this going to last? Is this real? Everyone wants a diversity person. You know, is it real? You know, and so so I'm not banking on it because I know how the world works. You know, everybody wants to be with the new until it's not new anymore. Exactly. And then what happens? So I can appreciate Blue for what it is. I just hope that it's not a short-lived thing. But you know, my friend Kenneth Kellogg, he was the lead, the bass lead. Kenneth and I, we went to the Academy of Vocal Arts together the first year. And I knew Kenneth was going to have an amazing career because he's an anomaly. You know, he's like 6'5", you know, bass, you know, totally, you know, can be shirtless on stage. I mean, you know, the sky was the limit for him. Even as a Black artist, I knew he was going to have a good career. But I know that it was refreshing for him to play that role, to sing about a Black man having a Black son. Yes. That was refreshing because he's never done it before. And that opportunity put him in a completely different place. And so I was happy for him because it was like, yeah, that felt good, didn't it? It felt good to do something that you actually have lived. And tell that story from a real authentic place as opposed to just having to make it up. So yeah, so I'm not sure if I answered the full question.
You did. So it's interesting because as an author, we have those same conversations, you know, in terms of what you look like, in terms of what makes you marketable as an author. People are very curious about, I can wear my hair curly or I can wear it straight. I've had people tell me, oh, you have so much more energy when your hair is curly. And I'm thinking it really doesn't matter what I decide to do because you're not looking at my picture. You're reading the words that I put on the page.
Right. Why does it matter?
Right. But I understand. But we get it though, because it's about marketability. Yeah. The other issue of stories and diversity. And we are in this weird time where everyone wants to be diverse. Everyone wants to make sure that everyone's included. However, when we look at Oscars, when we look at Tonys, when we look at Emmys, we still see a lack of representation oftentimes. And even when we look at the types of stories, I have sat in seminars where I've talked to people who are in the industry and they will tell you, do not make Black characters. And I'm thinking, well, why would I not make this character? Because you need to make it general so we can sell it. because if you make it Black, that pigeonholes it into a category and you may not be able to sell it. So you want to tell stories about the Black woman who is an opera singer or who has a podcast or who's a powerful attorney like on Scandal or whatever. But we can't make her Black. We got to figure out first who we can do. The second part of that is, we only have a select group of actors and actresses that we can go to. They can't represent the gamut of skin tones and color and shades. It's only so many. And then it depends on what's in and what's out. Tyra Banks said something many years ago about being a model. And she would say this, and I've heard other people say it. When as a Black model, no one knows how to do your hair. No one knows how to do your makeup. And so you have to search out and find. And so oftentimes she would talk about she would have to do her own hair and she'd have to do her own makeup just to do a show.
Right.
And so Black artists have so many more different hoops and challenges that you have to jump through and over just to get to where other people are. But then I think about Hamilton. I loved Hamilton. I don't know if you saw Hamilton or not, but there was this hip hop component that was added to it that made it very cool. But it also was led by Lin-Manuel Miranda. I'm not criticizing him, but I often wonder if you didn't have the lead role of the Black guy, who I forget his name, if you didn't have him, what would the story have looked like? Because he's wonderful. He's an anomaly as well. He can act and he can sing very, very well. And they just did an amazing job with that. But you're right. Oftentimes we see the same character over and over again.
And over. Yeah.
And it's as if, because as you said, you didn't grow up in a crime-ridden family. I didn't grow up in a crime-ridden family. I grew up in Detroit, and people will say, "Oh, you live in a very violent city." I said, "Not where I lived in Detroit. It wasn't like that. It was quiet. We don't have drive-bys and drug houses on the corner or any of those things." And people look at you, go, "You can't have grown up in Detroit. That's not the Detroit that I know." I said, "No, that's the Detroit that you see on television. That's what you see on the news." But I want to bring us back a little bit because you were talking about how you incorporate all of your experiences and all of those things and how you elevate your storytelling ability, your singing ability. But I want you to talk about, how do you balance motherhood? And the reason that I ask this question is because you're a mom. And as much as we working moms want to separate ourselves, we can't. There was, I often say it. I was raised at a time where you would see commercials. She could go to work. She can bring it home, fried up in a pan. And you were taught you can have everything. And I often tell people, well, that's not quite accurate. So it's not quite true. So Kisma, tell me, how do you balance motherhood and work?
Well, it's so funny because when I was in grad school, that's when I really said, okay, yeah, I'm going to have a career. And I was reading a lot of books around that time about, just artistry. And so I was reading a book and was just talking about, balancing personal and professional life and just the life of an artist. And, with opera, you depending on how your season is, you could do a concert over here, and then you leave that concert and go to a production. And a production, depending on how large the company is, how long the run of the show is, you could be there anywhere from a month to 4 months. And so part of it was just understanding whether or not you want to have a personal life, what that's going to look like, and basically make a decision. You can't have both. That's how it phrased it to me. So I was like, okay, fine. I think I could be without a personal life, because at that time I was very career driven. I mean, my focus was on my career. I never had been one to be a relationship girl. You know, you have some of your friends, you have all your girlfriends, and they all have their own personalities. And you have that one friend who's always with a new boyfriend, or someone says a new guy, and it's my friend, it's my new friend. And I never was that. I never, I just never had a lot of relationships. I was always, once I got in that mode of, yeah, this is what I want, that's where my focus was. And so at that time, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna, I don't need to have a personal relationship. And so, and then I was like, I don't want children. I never really thought about having kids. I just never thought about it. And so, but my voice teacher at the time, who had a long career as a soprano, she sang at the Met, the Metropolitan Opera in New York for over 10 years, and she sang with everybody. Marilyn Horne, Kathleen Battle. She came up during that golden age of opera, to George Shirley's and um, you know, I'm losing somewhere. So Florence Quivar and who else? Vernette, Shirley Verrett. And yeah, so and she had a very long career. But what she shared with me was that in this point, at this stage of her life, she's in her 60s, 70s. She's teaching now, she's not singing. She wished she had somebody to share her life with. And she did not want that for me. She's like, I don't want you to be lonely. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I had to rethink this whole thing. And so, but it can be lonely. And so, when the opportunity for real love came into my life, I was like, this is not in the plan, but that's love. You just go with it. And so, so it was later in life for me. I got married after 30 and hadn't really talked about kids. And then I was pregnant. And so, it was kind of a big deal at that point because I was older. I was over 35. And my mom, she just didn't think I was going to have kids. She never said that to me. But when I told her I was pregnant, she was like, I don't really think you're going to have kids. And I was like, why? Because I waited? Or I don't know. I didn't really plan it. I mean, I just wasn't going to plan it. If it was going to happen, it was going to happen. If it wasn't, it wasn't. And I didn't have any fear about becoming a mom at that point as it relates to my career, which let me know, okay, so I totally have shifted here. My heart and mind is in a completely different space and place. And so I just flowed with the idea of it and saying, I'll still sing and I'll just take her with me. We'll just make the provision that we need to make. And that's what I did. And so that first year was funny because I I was like, okay, so I'm really just going to sit at home and just enjoy being a mom and just, but all these opportunities to see kept coming in the door. And I was like, these were really good things. Like, Bravo, Bravo, the Metropolitan Opera. I mean, the Michigan Opera Theater, they do Bravo, Bravo every year. And the planner, she used to work at the DSO. And so she called me, she was like, I want you to headline. And I was like, oh, I can't really pass up headlining Bravo, Bravo. It's kind of like too good to pass up. And so, so I had Nala with me. She was at shows with me. I was like, call her with my mom. And I was just like, just watch her in the dressing room. And she was with me. My husband worked late sometimes. And I just kind of felt the need to just have her with me. So I just took her with me. So, then the second child is a game changer. Okay. Because then you have two kids. Again, that's 13 kids in the dressing room with you. That's a completely different situation. And so we just, but there were moments I was teaching some, I would take her with me to lessons. I would just, they were just in tow with me. And the biggest thing and change was really the self-care, that part, because my girls, they pull on me, that's just a mama thing.
Yes.
Kids pull on mom. They don't pull on dad. I don't know why. They pull on mama. That's what they want.
Mm-hmm.
When they want to settle down, they want to calm down, ready to go to sleep, they want mama.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want daddy. And so understanding the importance of me taking the time
Mm-hmm.
and pouring back into myself to
Mm-hmm.
say, get rest, and so, I just come up with different things, committing myself to just have a spa day,
Mm-hmm.
relax my body, work out more, and give myself like a weekend, a
Mm-hmm.
day or two, a day and a half, where it's just me, nobody else, nothing else. I can watch movies, I can sleep, I could do my, give myself a pedicure, I can take myself to dinner, but just the point of just having the self time to reflect in your own mind, reset your mind, whatever you need to do, because it's important.
Mm-hmm.
Because if mama's not good, nobody's good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If mama's not in a good place, nobody's in a good place. No one says if daddy's not in a good place, nobody's in a. I've never heard that saying. I
Yeah.
now if daddy's not in the home, that's a different thing. But if
Mm-hmm.
mama's not in a good place, if mama's not well, nobody's well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important to understand that self-care is important. And then the state of your marriage is important.
Mm-hmm.
People always say, when you become a parent, do you put your spouse before your children? And I was like, yes. And I know people's like, well, it's your kids, your kids would be the most important thing. It's just like, but the reality is, it's like in the wild, when there's no food and they find food, mama eats the food.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't give the food to the lion cubs or the babies. She eats it
Mm-hmm.
because if she's not well, the babies perish.
That's right.
That's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And moms just give, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't make sure that they're well. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just had to learn that, coming out, especially with the second pregnancy, our second daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I went through a big loss in my life. My grandmother passed away unexpectedly. And then I found out I was expecting. So I was grieving,
Mm-hmm.
and when I was pregnant, so I couldn't even finish grieving. And it was such a big loss. I found myself in a postpartum
Mm-hmm.
depression
Mm-hmm.
coming in out of that pregnancy, and
Mm-hmm.
really just had to um, do some work to get back to a well place and understand that it's a lot. And when it's a lot, you got to, deconstruct it and process it so that you're well, because you got to be well for your children.
Mm-hmm.
And so self-care, and then, making sure that I have time with my husband and that we are taking time away as parents to be covenant. Because if the covenant's not well, the whole home structure, there's nothing there. There's no foundation, and then the children aren't well because it
Mm-hmm.
trickles down to them. And so just understanding those two fundamental things, and then kind of creating the steps of walking it out daily. That's always the struggle. You can, in theory, you have the idea in theory, but then you have to move in it. It's like you have to create the steps to walk out the principle. And so that just comes with, we a date night, we're going to have this meeting on this day every day, or every, Tuesday. And that means going to be devoted to us talking about A, B, and C,
Mm-hmm.
and just creating the routine to be able to have the realignment, if you will, to just keep things realigned.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps the balance. And just like family time, on the weekends, we're going to go out here. It's going to be a whole family thing. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to be intentional about spending time with the children, just like we're intentional about spending time with one another. And we're intentional about having self-care time as
Mm-hmm.
well. And that helps the balance. But it gets crazy. It gets hectic. You get a week where you have something to do every day, And so I mean, but having daycare works, because our babies are small. Our youngest just turned 2 last Saturday, and
Oh,
we have a 3-year-old. She'll be 4 in January. And so, they're very impressionable. And so we guard them. We
mm,
do. They're not everywhere around everybody.
mhm,
Um, and that's just us. We just, until I feel more comfortable with their ability to articulate. Yeah, so they don't go everywhere,
mm,
but having them in a structure, Monday to Friday, that gives me time to do what I need to do during the day. So I'm always saying the days work best for me. Everything before 4:30. And if I need to be in the evening, just give me enough time and I can
mhm,
schedule that.
mhm.
So yeah, so we have a system that helps to balance, but I could have never imagined my life would be where it is now, myself with 2 children. As a 25-year-old, I could have never seen that because I thought that's not what I wanted. But now I really couldn't imagine, not being married with my children. Because it's good to be able to come home to that.
Mhm,
Um, I know some people who don't have it to come home to, and you want somebody to come home to. So,
mhm,
I started to feel it when I would that Porgy and Bess. So it
mhm,
was a 4-month gig. We didn't have children then. Even though it was just in Chicago, that was it was still a lot because I wasn't seeing my husband.
mhm,
We would Skype and whatever, but it's just not the same.
mhm.
And it's just different when you're on the other side. Once you're married, it's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
Because the coming together, just that, and
Mhm,
not being able to have that can just, it
mhm,
can weigh on you, can become a burden. So you
mhm.
just have to, people just need to know and commit to what the life is. It's going to get crazier, especially now because I have this project. So we're going to be doing a lot of traveling. But I can see why people bring their families on the road with them.
Mhm.
Our husband is a part of the crew. He's doing something, or wife is a part of the crew. Give them a job or something so that they're there
Mm.
because it does impact um, your mindset and what you want to do, how you're focusing when you need that um,
Mhm.
the village around you. So yeah, but you just got to find out what works for you and then apply it.
Excellent, excellent advice. I heard you talk about self-care. You talked about your postpartum depression experience. I also had one with my second son. I have 2 boys, so there's a
Oh
lot of
wow.
testosterone in this house. Boy, oh boy, let me just tell you. However, I digress. Um, but it is important to be intentional in scheduling time, in making
Yes.
sure that you have time with your spouse, because that is
Right.
important. Because at some point, your kids are going to grow up
Yep.
and
And they're gonna leave.
they're going to leave. And you're going to be left with the person that you married, that you made these children with. And you're going to go, well, who are you
Who
again?
are you? Who are you? I don't know who you are because everything has been about the kids. Focus on the
Exactly.
kids and everything. And it's
Mhm.
just like, yeah, no, we gotta stay
Mhm.
me and you because they're gonna leave us
Yes.
and be
And
gone.
right.
And-
And we want to set a successful example for them to
right.
see
Right.
so that they can go and emulate that so that they don't have generational curses that we see in other
Right.
families where
Yeah.
everybody's divorced. They can't have a
Right.
successful relationship because they don't know what it looks
They
like.
don't know,
So,
right? They have no examples. And that's me and my husband. What I mean? Like, I really had any real successful examples of what a godly marriage is. People can be married, but
mhm,
marriage is a ministry. Like there are there are assignments attached to marriages.
mhm,
God just doesn't have us coming in covenant just because, everything has a purpose. And
mhm,
so some people don't know what their purpose is. They don't know what the purpose of the marriage is. And so understanding that helps you to fight for it,
mhm,
because it has a purpose in the earth. And if it fails, who's gonna cover that? Who's gonna, do that? So I
mhm.
think the charge is greater when you have an understanding um, of why you're coming together and what this covenant is supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
and and we just needed to, we have to figure that out on our own,
Mm-hmm.
but we figured it out, and that's the point, just to know, so that our daughters grow up and understand that everything has a reason, nothing just happens, stuff is for a purpose, and to just demonstrate love in front of them, so we're intentional about kissing in front of one another, kissing each other in front of our girls, so
Mm-hmm.
that they can see that. So it's not a taboo thing. It's like, listen, married people are supposed to love. You're supposed
Mm-hmm.
to love and make love. That's what marriage is about.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they see that, then it's a part of them. And so they don't feel shame in the idea of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll better understand that once they get older. But for just them to understand that that's a joy. And
Mm-hmm.
our daughter, our oldest daughter, saw us kissing, and she just laughed, and she was just like, "You love." I was like, right. We love. Mommy love daddy. Daddy love mommy. But I was glad that when she saw that, that's what she thought. That
Mm-hmm.
that's love.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so we're just being intentional so that they understand how they function, and how a man should function in with them, in that capacity. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Kisma, this has been a wonderful time sitting down talking with you. Before we go, please tell us where we can find Opera Soul, where we can reach out to you, and if you will be doing any performances soon and where we can find out about those.
Okay. So I'm actually working on trying to have another presentation of Opera Soul, the Opera Soul Experience in Detroit before the end of 2021.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm working on now. The initial debut of the Opera Soul Experience was September 1st and 2nd, at the Detroit Symphony Orchestra's summer session, and we closed out their summer session series. And so I launched the Opera Soul EP on September 1st as well.
Mhm.
And that's a 4-song EP that was performed live on the concert. And so I have a brand new website, kismajordan.com, and you can find everything about myself, my history, and what projects I'm working on, such as the Opera Soul Experience. I have a digital series called Full Circle Moments, where I'm sharing different experiences about on my musical journey. You can see that there. All my social media, videos, all on my website. And so all of my social media handles are Kisma J Music. And so we'll be doing some things in the spring for Opera Soul in the city. But I'm working on the video of the concert to release that, and just some making of behind the scenes things from rehearsals, and from people who attended the concert, their thoughts and sentiments about it. But my EP is available on my website as well. You can purchase it right from there, and you can also see where you can stream it on, all music streaming platforms. And I'm just focusing on taking the Opera Soul Experience to the next level. That's really what we're doing. So I'll be also launching a fundraising campaign. I still have my fiscal sponsorship through the Miami Foundation,
Mhm.
with my Night Arts Challenge grant. And so I'm trying to get some more funds in order to do as much as I'm trying to do with it while I have the fiscal sponsorship, such as, touring and more digital content. And so I am looking for people who want to donate, um, and, be able to have a tax deductible donation towards this project. And so I really want to get the footage out to people so that they can see what the concert experience was like. But there's a lot of content on my website, um, that just speaks to what I want to do, what I'm doing, and where I'm trying to go with the project. So, but kismajordan.com, it's a one-stop shop.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Kisma Jordan, for coming on and talking to us today. I hope that you will join us again soon and keep us up to date where the OperaSoul Experience heads toward and how we can watch you progress. I'm so excited for you. Please let us know when the next performance is, because I definitely want to be in the house when you actually do that. Thank you again for
Will
coming
do.
on the Kim B. Davis Show.
Thank you for having me. It was a joy talking with you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Kim B. Davis Show. You know that you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat, TikTok, every place on social media. You can find me under Kimberly Batchelor Davis. Bachelor is spelled Batchelor. You can see this show on youtube.com/Kimberly Batchelor Davis. You can also listen to this show on Apple, Spotify, Google, and Stitcher. You can find out more about me as an author at kimbdavis.com. Thank you again for tuning in. I hope you'll join us on the next show. And as always, remember, be magnificent.